Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Animal Court. It is the first episode of our podcast, I guess the inaugural episode of our journey. I'm Paul Mueller.
And I'm Janelle Babington from Animal Victory. I have a petition platform. Many of you have probably heard of our petition platform. We've written about 390 petitions to fight for strict punishments for alleged animal abusers.
And I do a lot of stuff on social media. Some people call me an influencer. I'd rather just be called a person who has a voice. I come from 30 years of television news, but there's a reason why Janelle and I are here together today. Janelle, I think we've known each other for what? How long now?
It seems like 40 years, but maybe 5.
5 years. And there was at one point, Janelle and I, we got together and we realized that each one of us was going in the same direction. However, we were doing it by different means. And then finally we decided, hey, why don't we bring the petitions together along with the social media together and create them into a podcast where we can amplify the voices for the animals. We can be the voices for the animals and we can get their stories out there. You know,
yes.
Too often we see it, Janelle, and too often we see it is that these animals. If you want to step on me, you gotta jump in, Janelle.
Sure. All right. Well, be quiet for a minute. So Paul and I, we would be on the phone till 3 a.m. discussing these stories, and we still do that to this day. Between the two of us, between my organization and Paul's organization, we've probably got 2,500 to 3,000 animal abuse stories, petitions, or investigations published. And Paul and I would sit and talk on the phone, talking about the emails we're getting, the questions we're getting. What do we do with this? What petition? Is this a good petition? Is this something to that we should publish or talk about? There's no shortage of animal abuse, sadly. So we got to the point where we thought, we need to get more people involved. We need more help. We need to tell people what we're going through. We're fighting on our ends. We're both working for the same mission. We need to get together, band together. And that's how the Animal Court podcast was born. So we're here, hopefully, like Paul said, not for the last time, but we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to animal welfare. And we're here to share our stories, get more help for the animals, and collaborate.
Yeah, I think to me, and I think to Janelle as well, if I can speak on her behalf, we have a little bit of sense of humor. You guys will get it throughout. Right, Janelle? I think I'm looking a little red today.
Yeah, and I don't even know what you're wearing. Our first podcast, we've been doing this since November, and that's what you're wearing. That's beautiful.
You know what? This is Cremieux from France. So you know what? Let's not even stop. But what's most important is Janelle and I have this wonderful relationship, and that parlays over into what we can do for the animals, how we can use our voices and use our platforms to make the difference for these animals. You always hear be the voice of the voiceless. But Janelle, how many times do we have these cases where we see there's no justice or there's a slap on the wrist? We came here together. We've joined forces to make it as though we can be a larger voice and help other people understand what can be done and why is the system failing our animals. That's the biggest, I think that is one of the most common things that I've heard, throughout the decades. Why is the system failing our animals? And that's one of the main reasons we decided to do this podcast, Janelle.
That is exposing how the system fails dogs and cats. And one very important issue to announce, and I think this is the best time, is that our focus is going to be on dogs and cats because dogs and cats are our closest companions. Of course, we care about all animals, but we are definitely going to focus on dogs and cats. As our podcast goes on, we can bring in other types of animals, of course. But 90 million people in maybe just the United States alone have dogs, and maybe 78 million have cats. So they are our closest companions. They are the number 1 and number 2 animals reportedly abused. And they're the perfect animals to talk about because these are the majority of our cases. And hopefully we can, between Paul and I, we've got investigations and petitions and questioned so many people. He's got an audience of I don't know, 400,000 people, and we've got an audience of 300,000 people. Combining these audiences, getting getting their feedback and learning from them and answering their questions. We all want to do this together. The goal is to collaborate and get as much help for the animals as possible. We need answers. We need solutions. Working together, we're going to get that. It's no longer, it can't be separate. Paul doing his investigations and Janelle and her team doing petitions. People need to understand. Every time I hear, do petitions really work? And I have to try to explain to everybody, yes, do petitions really work? They sure do work, okay? Silence doesn't work. That we know.
Right.
All right.
And,
So
and that's the thing. That's the thing, Janelle. Do petitions really work? How long have you been doing this? How many signatures have you gotten? And that's the bottom line. The proof is in the pudding. You've got the paperwork, the signatures, the DAs, the prosecuting attorneys to back all that up. People want to be a part of.
They sure do. We've got a lot of animal lovers out there, and animal lovers are fierce. You can tell by our audiences. But the court system in the United States, where we focus mostly at Animal Victory, is they have their own set of rules. And, there's a lot of reasons why animals don't win. And people get very frustrated with that. The number one reason is animals don't have rights, okay? And then when you're dependent on the state and the jurisdiction that you're in, the prosecuting attorney may not have enough evidence. They may not care about animals. The DA and the prosecuting attorney, they have all the power. And if they decide they don't want to prosecute a case, then that's what they're going to decide. And that's where petitions come into play when we tell them, hey, this case matters. We're putting pressure on you. We want something done. We're watching you. And we go through it over and over again, as many cases as we can, follow. But these jails are filled with, violent offenders, mass murderers, things of that nature. So animals are at the bottom of the list, without question. They're at the bottom of the list. And here we're going to try to let the world know what needs to be done through our podcasts to bring animals to treat animals respectfully and with kindness. That is the goal.
And I think it's also too, Janelle, it's like it's almost like a one-stop shop. If you come to this podcast, if you listen or you watch this podcast, because we're trying to break on, because we do this all the time, Janelle. I'm seeing your emails to people at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, explain why the PACT Act is a certain way and it doesn't apply to this, why a person cannot be charged with this, why a person, even though they're caught on video, might not be charged because it's up to the prosecutor to make sure it's a reason to make sure that they go ahead and convict them through that video. Just because they're caught on camera doesn't mean they're guilty.
Exactly. Every state has their own set of laws, and most of these cases, if not all of them, are prosecuted at the state level. So what goes on in one county may not necessarily, or one state, what's a felony in one state may not necessarily be a felony in another state. And when we talk about the PACT Act, our guest Erin will be able to hopefully explain a little bit, but we get a lot of emails, and I'm sure you do, Paul, as well. The PACT Act was signed. It's a felony. Why is this an issue? Well, the number one reason it's an issue is because it's not being enforced, okay? And the PACT Act is very confusing. The PACT Act it doesn't need to occur on federal property, but interstate, it does have to cross interstate lines. And even with the PACT Act, it's up to the feds if they want to prosecute the case, or the district attorney. And again, they have to come up with the evidence. And the feds are concerned about organized crime. I think Erin's going to talk about a very, very vile case involving monkeys and the PACT Act. And I've seen it before, and I'm not experienced with this. We do have a petition that we did, and this person, a U.S. Air Force officer, was in violation of the PACT Act, and that was in 2023, Henderson, Nevada, and he was sentenced appropriately. We also have another case that involved the PACT Act, and this girl, she's a doozy. She's from Indiana, Crystal Scott, and the sad thing was, okay, she was convicted in 2020, and we were only a year into the petition business, and we were very excited because the PACT Act was signed, and she did get punished. So she went to jail. We were so happy. only to find out that, and we got her back again. So here she is again in July 2025. She was convicted again. She violated her probation. She was caught with animals in a rented U-Haul. So now she's in jail again. But that goes. This particular case, anyway, shows us that these offenders repeat. This is a
Of course.
really, really bad sickness. This is, when we talk about crushing, I don't think it gets any more vile and disturbing. I sometimes can't even get the words out of my mouth. But again, just because somebody burned or crushed an animal, these things of what what the law covers, doesn't mean that they're going to be convicted, or in violation of the PACT Act. Again, it's going to depend on the DA and the prosecuting attorney and the judge, and that's how it works.
And
and the
Janelle, I think you
resources.
really Janelle, sorry. I really think you hit the nail on the head when you said they're going to do it again. That is what has been the case for how long now? However, when we step into the legal ring, it seems like, there you go. We had the woman from the Chandler 55 just a couple of months ago, dying to get out of prison, right? So why?
Right.
Because we can't say 100% for sure, but we do know, based on so many experiences with these people, these individuals before, that they will go right back to doing what they've done and be okay about it. And the thing is, in their mind somehow, that is what they should be doing.
Yeah, they're sick individuals. They're evil individuals, without question. And I don't have the cure for them. I just want to do what I need to do for the animals and get them out of society. They are not good in society. And as we know, animal abuse goes hand in hand with domestic abuse. So we oftentimes will have to use that lingo in our, when we're talking to prosecuting attorneys and when we're fighting these cases. And again, they don't want to, a lot of times they don't have the resources for animals because they're at the bottom of the list. So until animals get rights, we're going to have to continue to fight, and we're going to have to continue with petitions. I think of petitions as little mini protests. And that's what we have to do. So do petitions matter? They sure do. And Paul, what you're doing is critical. You're on air. You're doing these investigations. You've got the police calling you, asking for answers. And that's what it's about. I mean, it's a big cluster of a mess.
I thought you were going to say you've got the police on your case all the time.
Yeah, maybe that too. I don't know. I'm trying to get you out of trouble. I know that.
all the time. And so do we want to talk about one more case real quick? Because we've got Erin Sharoni standing by. She is just a wonderful person when it comes to the world of animals. I have, her resume, if you will, and I'm just sitting here and reading it and going, my gosh, where do I even start? So do you want to go ahead and bring Erin in now? Janelle, is that okay?
I think that's perfect. Erin's going to be able to, we want to talk about the PACT Act. We need her. It's my understanding, Erin, you did work on a case, or you have a new case coming up. So I think what would probably be the most pressing question, people are confused. They understand what the law covers. That seems to be pretty clear to them, but they don't understand the interstate commerce that and the federal property. The act has to occur on federal property. It doesn't have to, but if it does, they're in violation of the PACT Act. And the interstate borders, okay? Because sometimes, like there's a man right now in South Carolina, Paula sent to me the other day, who burned a dog. Does the PACT Act apply? I don't think it's going to apply because there's no interstate commerce involved. So I think can you explain how that part works and why
I'm gonna bring it down to the non-lawyer level.
Thank
so
you.
We don't have
Take
to
the
explain
legalese
constitutional amendments and the interstate commerce clause to people. But effectively, there's a couple of things. So when you're dealing with online distribution, which is what the PACT Act of 2019 actually makes it a federal crime to intentionally either commit or distribute extreme animal cruelty content. So crushing, burning, sexual torture, which is what we're going to talk about because we see a lot of this with infant monkeys and kittens. as you alluded to earlier, Janelle, which is absolutely hideous. But there has to be a federal connection, such as interstate commerce, meaning that it is commercially traversing state lines. So let's say I'm in Pennsylvania and I, in the case of the monkeys, which we're going to talk about, commission a video or some act of torture to be made, and that money is crossing state lines, right? Hey, somebody in Indiana is going to, essay a dog. I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm paying for it, or the animal could be physically moved. But when it comes to online distribution, you're in a whole new territory, and that's where a lot of this sadism, zoosadism is the term for it, is occurring. It's all being distributed online. Something I think people are a bit confused about is that they think, oh, like you said, we have this thing called the PACT Act, and that means all animal cruelty is illegal. That's not what it means at all. It didn't even create a general federal animal cruelty law. It actually federalizes only certain extreme conduct in the instance of, as we just said, interstate or foreign commerce. Or videos distributed online, which would qualify. So it's not saying like every animal cruelty case, no matter how egregious, is now federal, which is why a lot of it is prosecuted at the state or even local level, depending on what it is. And it's very important for people to understand that there's this notion that, it came about in 2019. It didn't actually. In 2019 is when President Trump signed into law an expanded statute. So there was an original piece of legislation, I think it was in 1999, and it targeted actual depictions of animal cruelty, but it was struck down in a particular SCOTUS ruling because of the First Amendment. So you can imagine, let's say somebody creates a piece of art. Not that I would want to look at art that depicts animal cruelty, but there could be literary, it could be visual art, it could be I don't know. I mean, there's all of these. You don't want to infringe upon journalistic and rights and the First Amendment, and so this is really important, and why the PACT Act is so nuanced. So two things. One is that in 2019, what President Trump signed into law, it expanded the federal law to cover not just video trafficking and distribution, but also importantly to criminalize the underlying act of the intentional extreme cruelty. So in the case of the animals, crushing, drowning, burning, sexual torture, impaling, all of these things. And that's when the federal jurisdictional hook then sort of exists. So now you have, hey, we can prosecute you federally for the distribution online or across state lines, interstate, foreign commerce, and then also if you actually commit the underlying act, then you can be punished under this law as well. But there is a catch that most people don't know about, and the lawyer in the room will appreciate this. Unfortunately, like most things with law, words matter, and they matter a lot. And sometimes they create loopholes. And so there's a qualification where basically, it's not in all cases, but let's make a broad generalization for the PACT Act. It has to meet something called the obscenity test, specifically the Miller obscenity test. And I think Paul and I talked about this once on a live stream, but it's very important to understand because if you see somebody committing such an act, right, or you hear or read a description of the torture that we're about to discuss, any normal person would say, that's obscene, right? That's the word you would use. It's disgusting. It's obscene. Well, unfortunately, that's not how the law works. And the word obscene, so the obscenity point, actually, it has to qualify under something called the Miller test, which means it has to meet three standards. One is it has to appeal to prurient sexual interest. Two is that it has to depict very extreme sexual conduct in a way that's, patently offensive. And then it also has to, and this is for the First Amendment, it must lack any sort of artistic, political, or scientific value so that it can survive First Amendment challenges. That creates a problem because in some instances, you'll have these animal crush videos where there's actually not sexual torture involved. Usually there is, but a lot of times there's not. And so therefore, it is not appealing to prurient sexual interests. And so it could technically be argued that it doesn't pass the Miller test. So that's another issue with the PACT Act. So, to the earlier
very
point.
Interesting. Very interesting. I knew nothing about that, Erin. I very much appreciate this information.
And Erin, let me just jump in there, because here we are. You're telling us how this has to go through First Amendment, possible appeal, not this, not that, and too often, and I think all three of us can agree with this, is that we will see someone in response to an act of alleged animal cruelty. PACT Act, 7 years. No, no. And I just want to bring it back to that, because that is where a lot of people are at. They believe that when President Trump signed the PACT Act into law back in 2019, that would apply to all animal cruelty. And I just want to break it down for everybody right now, because it's really important, because I keep hearing commerce, and we're going up the ladder as far as how the PACT Act works, what it works for, and what it doesn't work for. But at the end of the day, we have to say, A, it is not for all animal cruelty, and B, you're saying for the test here, for the litmus test, if you will, I mean, for these horrific cases that we're going to talk about, they might not even be prosecuted under the PACT Act for that. So even to get to the PACT Act to be prosecuted that way, there are a lot of steps to be taken.
And I think, the easiest way to explain it to our users, Paul, in the future is that there has to be some sort of interstate crossing, border crossing, or foreign lines crossed. That's the best way to explain it. To get into the Miller amendment that Erin was talking about would be far too confusing for me and them. So the PACT Act just doesn't apply. And even when it does apply, it's up to the DA if they want to prosecute. So, and that's just how every case is.
Yeah, and importantly, if it's online distribution, then it often does fall under the jurisdiction of the PACT Act, because if now you're invoking interstate commerce, correct?
And the way that if money crosses also, because if money passes through online, if somebody's distributing the crushed monkeys, the videos that this new underground evil world, well, it's not new, but because the Air Force man, that's him right here. Oh, this is the one woman. She was distributing horrific monkey crush videos for money online. So she was in violation of the PACT Act.
Which woman? We've got a lot of women and men.
There's a new one from last week that's even worse than that one.
Yeah. Let me see. Who was
she? Are we talking about the most recent one? Because the last that we spoke, Erin, we were talking about someone out of South Florida. But now,
out of Miami. Well, actually, yes. And the interesting thing is that ICE just published this woman's mugshot about 2 weeks ago. Her name is Amanda Leigh Flores. She, in my personal opinion, and I qualify this as saying my opinion, is a demonic human being who should not be anywhere in civilized society. When I tell you what she did, which I won't even be that explicit because it will upset too many people, but people are free to look into it. She was allegedly a co-conspirator.
Please say why you use that word too. Please say why you use that word, because I'm questioned about that all the time.
Well, she hasn't been sentenced yet. So she actually did plead guilty in a federal court. I have the plea agreement in front of me. It's signed. She's going to be sentenced in August. So we have to be very careful with our wording. Obviously, as you know, Paul, from your TV journalism days, certainly as the lawyer in the room knows, we can't just, we cannot make broad claims about things, if a conviction has not happened, if a sentence has not been handed down yet. So we're going based on the publicly available court documents, the press releases from Homeland Security, and other pieces of information that Facebook. People like us.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, there is stuff. Actually,
it's funny. No, yeah. We have that disclaimer. People are innocent until proven guilty. Everything is alleged.
Right.
Until they're convicted. But everything is alleged.
But this,
even though the evidence is clear, until they get to court, they're only alleged to have committed the crime.
And so this latest, I like to use the word individual, because it really doesn't give you any sense of warmth, feeling, human, male, female. This individual, what's her name? Amanda Flores from Chicago, Illinois, and she was, I think, prosecuted in Pittsburgh.
Her name is Amanda Leigh Flores. Yep, she pled guilty. Flores. She pled guilty in the Western District of Pennsylvania. I don't know the details of it. That's where she was when she was arrested, or whatever the case may be. She actually so the sentencing works on a point system, and I am not a criminal law expert. I know what I know just from being an advocate and working in this, like you, Paul. But unfortunately, so she's got 2 counts. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts. 1 count is conspiracy against the government of the United States. Unfortunately, it's only a level 4 because conspiracy is a pretty serious charge. And then she has a 2nd count for the actual sexual crushing, sexual distribution of sexual crush videos, and the things that they did with these infant monkeys are absolutely heinous. And something important to understand, and this points to the insufficiency of the law overall, as you guys were suggesting earlier, is that even under the PACT Act, which is a federal law, now you're being sentenced in federal court, not state, the max is 7 years. And the first count that she's guilty of conspiracy against the government of the United States carries only a max of 5 years. And the parties stipulated to an offense level of 19, meaning 19 points after sentencing enhancements and her acceptance of responsibility. It's just, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys all agree, I'm sure everyone listening agrees, it's just so insufficient, because we know what's going to happen is that she's going to go in for sentencing, and it's possible that because she's a first-time offender, that in terms of being caught, that she'll just get 37 months. And then what happens? Then they get released early on good behavior. And Janelle, like you said,
that's exactly what Krista Scott did. I thought they'll
go on and reoffend.
And she did it again. And so, we have to push these prosecuting attorneys to convict these people. The evidence is there. They distribute it online. I don't know why they're lenient. Yes, you mentioned she's a first-time offender, so that has a lot to do with it. But she also is charged with conspiracy. So with a little luck, as you said, that's very, very, that's a tough one. So she should be able to go to jail for a while just on that count alone.
It's sad that you even have to say the word luck.
It's true.
This woman's case is actually particularly disturbing, much more so
than the others.
It's different. It's different. And in fact, my friend, I'm going to give him a shout out, my friend Travis Hawley, who everyone should follow on Instagram and X. He's amazing. He's a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer. He's now a cybersecurity expert. He does a lot of investigations, into terrorism and stuff like that. But because terrorism often intersects with things like CSAM, child sexual abuse material, and now with animal crushing and torture, sometimes he'll also come across these things. He knows it's something that I'm obviously very passionate about. And so he said, hey, have you heard about this latest thing? Did you see ICE put the mugshot out? I said, yeah. And he said, well, I found some interesting stuff. And so we were on the phone for a very long time, and, he'll probably publish his investigation of this piece of garbage human as well. But interestingly, she was a licensed mortician. Then she became a licensed taxidermist. She has an Etsy shop with 18,000 sales and almost 5-star reviews, where she sells, and her last sale was in March, where she sells pieces of dead animals to people who are interested in the macabre. Now, you can't say that everybody who's interested in this does these things. Obviously not. Do I think it's a gross interest? Personally, yes. I think it's disgusting, and I would not have anything to do with it. But we can't say all those people are guilty. We could just say maybe they're weird, and we don't agree with that sort of predilection. But the fact is that this woman, think about her psychological profile. She was dealing with embalming dead humans, then stuffing dead animals, all the while, presumably, I don't know when this fetish started, when she joined the monkey torture ring, but the kinds of commissions, they're called VOs, video orders, that people like this, and this woman was allegedly a, pretty big figure in one of these large groups. It's the kind of sadism that wouldn't even appear in a movie, because nobody who isn't sick in the head would even think of something like this. You're talking about infants, hours of torture, sexual torture, rape.
Monkey infants.
Monkey infants.
Monkey infants. That's what's involved with the online torture.
Yeah.
Sometimes they use kittens. They use kittens as well. Kittens are very popular.
Erin, have you heard of the case in Canada, Irene Lima and Chad? They actually, so it's sick. It's like you said, it's hard to even verbalize some of this, but she and he, they had their own website, underground. It was all organized crime. They ended up going to jail for 12 years, which is the longest sentence in Manitoba, in Canada. And Canada takes animal welfare very seriously. They don't have a PACT Act, but I don't know what they have, to be honest with you. But they did, because it involved organized crime, and because it was sick. It was all a sexual fetish of her crushing kittens with her feet and getting off on it. And that's what it's about. And the monkeys, it's my understanding, they're infant monkeys, and of course, almost all of these cases are going to be in violation of the PACT Act, because monkeys come from, and I think they're filmed. A lot of these monkey crush videos are filmed in Indonesia and things of that nature. So they usually meet the criteria of crossing interstate lines, and then they for sure meet the criteria if people are online making money distributing the videos.
And here's the thing, though, you guys, is that, you know what, we're talking about her, but we have to remember there's a whole community around her. Because if the demand wasn't there, she wouldn't need to be supplying it or being part of selling, ordering. And it's just, it's just horrific to think, I want to place my order today.
I never even heard of this until I got into the business.
That's how these people work. I'd like to place my order, and it's just absolutely disgusting to most of us.
It's insane. It's really insane. Again, I never even heard of crushing. When Penny would tell me about some of these stories, she was in the business a lot longer than I was, and I'm like, what do you mean crushing? Like crushing? And so the monkeys is a whole different kind of category, because if I'm not mistaken, Erin, it's usually small animals that are crushed mostly, and the monkeys are part of a bigger organized ring. Am I right to say that?
It's very specific. They claim that they hate monkeys. I mean, I think the psychological implications to me are deeply disturbing, because monkey infants are the closest to human infants that we can get. Not to say that, doing this to a kitten or a rat or a rabbit or a dog is any better. Obviously, it's equally as terrible. But if we think about the motivations and who these people actually are, I think we should all be deeply alarmed that they're a major social threat, because you're not only getting off on the torture and sexual torture of another being, but it's an infant that looks like a human baby. And so what does that say about your misanthropy? This woman in particular, by the way, it's not just saying I'm going to buy videos. These people actually oftentimes will commission the videos. So they'll say what they want you to do. So they're actually directing the videos, in some cases participating. This piece of garbage, according to the DOJ bulletin, her and her co-conspirators allegedly use crypto to pay videographers in Southeast Asia, it's usually Malaysia and Indonesia. And she admitted to commissioning between 50 and 100 videos. So,
Erin, that's obviously it's sicker than I can even comprehend. I just wanted to mention we only have a few minutes, but I think it would be great to get you back on the show, because I think we need to talk about the PACT Act a lot. We have a few minutes left. If there's anything you can say, anything else you want to say to the viewers. I
mean, where do you go from after that, Erin?
Yeah, we need to get Erin on again.
I think
there's so much to talk about. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
A takeaway for so that people don't leave this feeling totally dejected, because it's really gross when you start to think about it. Yeah. You take a shower. But what I do want to say is, like, the people do have power. And like you guys said, petitions work. And one thing that I've been working on, particularly for the Miami case with this guy, Francisco Ravello, that you and I spoke about 6 weeks ago, Paul, is federal judges they have to admit things into the record. And so if you write a letter to the federal judge and you do so in the appropriate manner with all of the appropriate formatting and information, and you get, hundreds of thousands of letters sent, they can consider that in the sentencing. And I want to be very clear in this woman's sentencing, actually, and I have it written down here, but there's no cap. So the government preserved its right to argue victim impact and the full nature of her involvement at sentencing, and her guilty plea doesn't cap what the judge can consider. So even though the PACT Act and this conspiracy charge carry a maximum combined of 12 years, which we would argue, hey, give her at least the 12 years, even though it's not enough, the judge can actually consider what they feel is reasonable. And that's why it's so important to use our voice and say, hey, we the people don't accept this. The law is insufficient. Legality is not morality, as usual. You need to do better. These people pose a threat. This is beyond morality. These people shouldn't be around any living individual. Keep them locked up. And so I want people to know that you, as a United States citizen, have the right to write to a federal judge, to attend a hearing, and to say, hey, you need to listen to me. Nicely, of course.
Nicely.
And so that's important.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. We're here to combine our voices, to get more signatures, to protest more, to let the public officials know they work for us. Okay. And we're not asking for anything unreasonable. As Erin mentioned, these are the sickest of people. The crushing.
Erin, I think Erin, Janelle, I think you'd agree with me. Erin, I think you did a really good job breaking it down for us in the non-legalese way. Also, I'm hoping that our discussion really helped people understand why. I mean, I would love it if everyone could be prosecuted under the PACT Act for any kind of animal cruelty. Sadly, that is not the way it is today. Maybe sometime soon, that's what we have to do. And I often see it as these small victories. People are like 7 years. That's it. 7 years. Yeah. 7 years. It's a shame. It's a shame to say 7 years for all the horrific things that we're talking about. But at least there's a 7 years. That's what there's something.
At least the law was passed, and it made it through the amendment. So on that note, we're going to have to wrap it up. Erin, we hope you will join us again, because I really would love to hear more about the PACT Act and any other case involving animal abuse. We'd love to have you on to help us educate the people, educate our users. It was
so great to see you.
And we really appreciate
thanks for having me on, guys.
We really appreciate your time.
On the launch.
The first guest on the inaugural podcast. Erin, it's all on you.
It's all on you, Erin. Great. And thank you so much.
Me. I'm going to get a talking to once this podcast is over. I can already tell in Janelle's eyes.
I already can't wait to get on the phone and tell him what he did wrong. In any event, we want to thank everybody who's watching this for being here. This is our first podcast. Hopefully not our last.
Well, people can find out more, Janelle. I mean, people can find out more
by going to the animal court, theanimalcourt.org. Okay, we've got a website, and we're going to talk more about that every week. We'll be doing a podcast, and we'll let you know. We'll keep all of our users informed. Just go to freesignup.org, and you can become a free member.
There it is. Look at that.
There we are. This is our website.
Nice.
You can find everything you need to know.
There. Right. So, and you've set it up, Janelle, so that people can automatically just put their email addresses in there, and they can be notified of upcoming podcasts. Yeah.
You can go to theanimalcourt.org or freesignup.org and go ahead and we'll make sure that you find out when we're doing our next podcast. Our tagline is The Neighbor Next Door, The Hidden Abuse, and it applies in a broad spectrum. It applies to everybody. And we have 3,000 cases to discuss. So that leaves us, 10 years? If we do one a week, I don't know. Do the math.
And what's sad about this is that you just said that leaves us 10 years, and I'm thinking, and what is that woman's sentence? What is that individual's sentence going to be?
Oh, we'll be dealing with her again.
I'm sorry that I brought it up. I'm sorry that I
Yeah.
brought it up, but we want to
Yeah.
leave people on a good note. We're doing this, like we said, because there's a lot of misinformation going on these days. You're talking to the experts here, and I'm saying, and I'm directing it at the two ladies that you're looking at. You're talking with the experts here. They know what they're saying. They know what we're doing. We actually all kind of do. I'll put myself in
Paul,
there.
you are an expert as well, without question.
I always just say I'm a voice.
Yeah.
But thank you. But you know what? We're all here to do one thing. We're all here to be the voices. You know, it's such a overused phrase, but I don't care if it's overused or not. We are here to be voices for the voiceless. And at the end of the day, if we can help one animal, then what we do is worth it. Because you know what? You all know this is a calling. This is a calling. And we would not be doing what we do up until 4 a.m. in the morning, working with this person, working with that person, if we weren't so committed to doing what we do.
Right. I was born to do this job. I have a mission in life, and that is to work for animal welfare. Animals need to be treated kindly and with respect. So we've got a long way to go. So
Erin
on that
Sharoni,
note,
thank you so much. We appreciate you being
Erin.
here. Yeah. And
we will see everybody next time.
Yeah, when we get the next the next podcast together, which will be soon, we'll be getting it out. You can be notified if you go to the website.
Erin will probably be our guest again. She'll probably be the only one that wants to join us that we can get. We're lucky we got Russ. Russ producing. Where are you, Russ?
Where is Russ?
Where is Russ? Did he leave us already?
No.
Putting in his resignation. There he is.
There you go, Russ.
Thank you, Russ. For helping.
Always a pleasure.
When Erin is in TV world, we all would say the director, Russ, would be pushing buttons. Thankfully, he's not the kind that pushes the wrong buttons. Russ, thanks for being a part of this. And I mean, this is phenomenal that, we're working together. And we appreciate that too.
And thank you to everybody.
Mine. All right.
Alrighty.
That's going to do it for us, folks. You know what? We hope to see you right back here on the next podcast.